Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we are back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod. And of course, I'm joined by the $1 Million Man himself, WWE Hall of Famer, legend Ted DiBiase, and the man who gets to celebrate Thanksgiving 2 times. Ted DiBiase.
Yes.
What's going on, man?
Oh gosh, another day, another dollar, right? Or should the $1 million man say another day, another million?
Another million is always better. And
that
I
was
said
so
it.
true.
I said it.
But no, it's like I was explaining to you right before we started that because my I'm a grandfather now, and so because 2 of my grandchildren, actually maybe 3 of my grandchildren, are on a trip with their dad. And that's because my youngest son, Brett, I'm sorry, it's 2 of them still, 2 boys, Eli and Easton are with him. And because it's his, I don't know how they've got that all worked out. Anyway, he's divorced from their mother, and he's remarried. Anyway, they went on a trip somewhere, but because they were doing that, Melanie decided for us to have a family Thanksgiving last Thursday because they were leaving Friday. It wasn't Thursday because Thanksgiving's on Thursday. It just happened to happen that way. And so, we had turkey, we had the works, buddy. And now, even though the boys are gone and they won't be back for until the end of the weekend, we've got another turkey going. we got another turkey going. My wife's made dressing again, and it's like, holy, you know what?
Round 2.
It's like I don't know if I can do this again, but I'll try.
If it were up to me, I would do Thanksgiving once a month, so I wouldn't be complaining. I'd be here for it. The pie, the turkey, the dressing. Come on, man. Can't beat it. So, and look,
I like everything, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not really big on turkey.
Oh, really?
I mean, if it's like, because a lot of turkey that I've eaten, it's real dry.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? The meat's real dry. You got to put a lot of gravy on it or something. So I'm not a real big fan of turkey, but I'll eat ham all day long, brother. And the dressing and all the other goodies and the pumpkin pie.
Well, yeah. What is it? Pumpkin pie? Is that your number one on Thanksgiving?
Well, no. Because I guess pumpkin pie is maybe traditionally a Thanksgiving pie. But anyway, no, my favorite pie is apple.
Oh, so you can't beat a good apple pie.
No, I can't beat a good apple pie.
Now, is it apple crumb pie or just your straight up traditional apple pie?
Oh, I like the crumb pie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good shit.
Yeah. I like the other way too, brother. I mean, you're not going to displease me any way you throw it out there.
It's hard to screw up an apple pie as far as I'm concerned. I'll tell you what, a good pecan pie, cup of coffee.
There you go. That's my other favorite,
Boy, you're getting me hungry already. As we're recording this, tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and I cannot wait. I'm super pumped up for this. And Ted, I'm super pumped up for the episode that we've got here today, because today we are looking back 40 years to your return to Mid-South Wrestling, 1984. So if you remember, you had gone back to the Georgia territory. You were in Georgia in 1980, 81, went to Mid-South, then you went back to Georgia, and now you're headed back to Mid-South. So you're all over the map, back and forth between Georgia and Mid-South, and now we're picking it back up here in 84 as you're coming back. And, when you had left Mid-South before, you had turned your back on Junkyard Dog, and you'd started the Loaded Glove gimmick, and now you're back, and you're one of the hottest heels in the industry. So, man, there's a lot to cover today. We've got 3 clips in this one, so if you're ready to dive in, I'm ready.
Let's do it, man.
Here in 1984, 83, 84, if I remember right, you guys were living in Georgia still. So you had said how convenient the travel schedule was, where it's like you go out and travel with Georgia Championship Wrestling, come home, and Mel's there, and like makes life a lot easier, right?
And that was so true. That was the one thing about Atlanta that I love, is that I actually, by the time that Melanie and I, got married and went back there, when we went back and we actually lived in the house she grew up in, because her parents had retired and they'd come back to Mississippi, where her mother's from, and so we actually, instead of paying rent, we paid the mortgage on their house. And then, when we left, they sold it. So, anyway, that's the way that worked.
Now, all that being said, Ted, it's here you are. You've got this opportunity to come back to Mid-South in 1984, and this is after enjoying that kind of a lighter schedule, where it's you go out somewhere in Georgia, you're home the same night usually, all that sort of thing. Well, now we all know that Watts' travel schedule in Mid-South is absolutely crazy. Required you to go down to Houston, work for Paul Bosch every so often as well. So again, you and your wife are living in Georgia. A lot of convenience involved. I say all that to ask, how did you feel about going back to work in Mid-South and returning to that crazy road schedule under Bill Watts?
Well, I wasn't excited about the road schedule. What I was excited about is that I was going to go back to a territory that was run sufficiently. I give Bill Watts so much credit for my career, because I happened to start for him, and Bill Watts, I loved it because the work was good. The work was good, and Bill always had good talent. And I could have made a little bit more money, but the other thing that I had going for me was a deal in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So the Japan deal, that helped a whole lot.
Now, Ted, I'm wondering, could you walk us through like an average week's worth of travel in Bill's territory?
Okay. Most everybody, many of us, we had an apartment in Baton Rouge. I know JYD had an apartment there when he was there, and several others. But then there was, some of the guys lived in Alexandria, Louisiana, because Alexandria literally is right in the middle of the state. It's like I think it's 150 miles from, I'm trying to think the mileage, 120 miles from Baton Rouge to Alexandria, and then another 120 miles to Shreveport. So it's kind of like, right, so it's a 240-mile trip. And I used to get up, a lot. And that's why a lot of guys lived in Alexandria, is because it was fairly centrally located. And, but, Alexandria was this little town. I didn't, it just didn't set well with me. So I did what I wanted to do. But yeah, the trip wise, oh my gosh, like Monday was an easy trip for me, because it was New Orleans. New Orleans is 85 miles from Baton Rouge. Go do the show, and I was back home on Monday night. Tuesday night was Baton Rouge, and so I would wrestle in Baton Rouge, and on Tuesday nights, and sometimes go up to Shreveport that night. But most of the time, I would stay at home, because it's another night at home. Tuesday night, get up Wednesday early morning and drive from Baton Rouge all the way to Shreveport just to do our interviews. We did our interviews for the show that would be put into a show that we'd already done, and it would air that week. And that was the week. Obviously they see the interviews you're doing that for the upcoming week that you're going to be there. Anyway, so we would do interviews on Wednesday, and that's when we got our checks. And then on Wednesday we would leave Shreveport and drive to. Sometimes we would go to Jackson, and I'm trying to think the other two places because some of the stuff, the schedules changed. But no, Wednesday was Jackson, and then Thursday you would either go to Greenwood or Greenville, Mississippi. They're both about 100 miles from Jackson, but one's like here and then one's over here. They were, I think, like 50 miles apart. Anyway, we would wrestle either in Greenwood or Greenville, and then drive all the way back through Jackson, Mississippi, all the way back down to Baton Rouge. That's a long haul. Oh my gosh, I hated that trip. And so we'd go back down to Baton Rouge, and then Fridays and Saturdays were different. They were like there was one little town, the Houma, Louisiana, which is about 100 miles from Baton Rouge, and we'd wrestle there sometimes, and just I don't know, it was like one of those days that it could be, and I don't know. I know one thing is that Watts got us going to where I know we would do double shots on the weekends. We would do like say Lafayette, Louisiana, and Houma, Louisiana, on the same day. Anyway, it was just craziness, but it is what it is, and if you're gonna, you just got to take the bad stuff with the good stuff. But
Now, I'm
you
sorry,
know,
go ahead.
the knowledge that I gained by working under Bill Watts was priceless.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think, a lot of people might resent Bill, but I think that most people will acknowledge him as a great wrestling mind. How many days a week are you working then?
7.
7 day, every day of the week you're
Yeah.
working.
Well, there were never days off in wrestling, ever.
Man, I mean, the travel there sounds absolutely wild, and it's got to be taxing on any family. Not to mention, you're working 7 days a week. So if you're working 7 days a week, your body is getting absolutely punished. Out there in the ring, where it's like, man, I'm guessing you're waking up feeling sore, and the last thing you want to do is go and take more bumps, but you got to make the money, right?
Well, it's kind of like when you play football. When you go out, every fall, for football, the first 2 weeks are hell because your body is adjusting to what you're putting it through. You're putting on those pads and you're starting to, but after a couple of weeks, you don't notice it. And you don't, unless you get, banged up or something, that shouldn't happen happens and you get hurt. That's different. But now, as far as feeling bad or being sore in the morning, well, not in wrestling, buddy. It's kind of like flat back bump. I could take them all night long, and I did.
I am curious, Ted. You've made this move away from Georgia. You guys were living in Mel's parents' house. Did you guys sell the house right away, or is she remaining back in Georgia whenever you first come back to Mid-South?
Oh no! When we left Atlanta, her parents put the house up for sale.
Okay.
Yeah, and so
so you guys, you put her in Baton Rouge in an apartment right away.
Yeah.
Well, as for the territory at this time, some things have changed since the last time you were in Mid-South. You had left, of course, after this red-hot feud with JYD, but in the summer of 1984, Dog has left the territory without giving any notice to Bill Watts. He's made the jump to the WWF. So now Bill Watts, for one thing, he's actively burying Junkyard Dog on their TV, where he'll call him like a coward or something like that.
Yeah.
Just kind of shitting all over Dog any opportunity he gets. But now the top baby face in the territory is Jim Duggan. And according to Jim himself, he started making top guy money as Bill tried to ensure that he wouldn't lose any more key players there. Now, obviously, Ted, at this point, you've got a lot of equity in yourself as a character. So I would have to imagine that Bill viewed you in that light as well. I say all that to say is, are you making? You don't have to give me any figures if you don't want to. Are you making a lot more money during this?
I was definitely making better money. I mean, again, I started there, I was a rookie there, so I knew what the bottom money was like too. But yeah, once I was the top guy. I was the top heel. And I left and I came back and I was still that heel.
And Bill positions you that way too, and they really make a lot of your return here, as we'll talk about here in a minute. Now, I did want to ask you this question. It's a question I asked Jake before on our podcast, The Snake Pit, whenever he made a jump to a new territory. And I mean, during this time, let's all keep this in mind. Professional wrestling is, you might make pretty good money, but you're not making the kind of money that they were making today. You guys, I want to say that it's not even close. And I want to say that, in Bill Watts territory, I believe I heard that the top guy, if you're the Bill Watts top character, you were making roughly $3,000 a week, which is good money in any era. So pretty decent. However, you can't retire after $3,000 a week.
No.
And God knows you're not going to be working for Bill Watts for 50 years, right? So and there's no retirement fund, there's no pension. When you stop working, you stop getting paid. So again, I'm saying all this to ask you, during this time, I know that you wouldn't have any aspirations to go to the WWF until a few years after this, when WrestleMania 3 happened. During this time, what are your long-term goals, Ted? What are you hoping for in professional wrestling?
It was kind of like I was in the moment, it was like I was young and I was vibrant and I was doing really good, and I just thought, it's kind of like you daydream and go, when I'm too old to wrestle, I'll become a manager or whatever. I don't know, but I just thought wrestling was going to be, a permanent thing in my life because I grew up in it.
Okay, guys, let's hit the pause button on the show real quick to talk about our fantastic sponsor. Of course, I'm talking about the guys that we all know and love. We're talking about Blue Chew. Ever since we started talking about Blue Chew here on Everybody's Got a Pod, the question keeps coming up from people, does Blue Chew work? Well, look, if you're asking that question, we want you to know that Blue Chew is putting their money where their mouth is by giving you a month for free. Guys, Blue Chew is an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in a chewable form. The process is simple. All you've got to do is sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped directly to your door. And if you want to know the best part, here it is. It's all done online. So what that means is you can forget about all the visits to the doctor's office. You can forget about having to have those awkward conversations, or how about the worst part, waiting in line at the pharmacy. Skip all of it with a little help from Blue Chew. You can take them anytime, day or night, so that you can plan ahead or be ready when an opportunity arises. And what do you stand to lose? You can try it for free for a month, and we think that you're going to love it and your partner's going to love it. You could be missing out on the best sex of your life without even knowing it, just because you haven't given this a shot. It's a free service. Why not just try it? And if you don't like it, okay, forget it. You don't have to try it ever again. We always say that first impressions are important, but how about lasting impressions? Build up your confidence with Blue Chew, and they're giving you confidence where it counts the very most. Guys, Blue Chew wants men rock hard. That's what they tell me. That's their mission. They will not stop until every man is bricked up like a brick house, till every tent is pitched, till every rod is raised. Discover your options right now at BlueChew.com. And guys, we've got a special deal for you, our listeners. Again, you can try Blue Chew free. All you've got to do is use our promo code EGAP at checkout and then just pay $5 shipping. That's it. Just go to bluechew.com, use our promo code EGAP to receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we want to thank Blue Chew for sponsoring Everybody's Got a Pod. So, Ted, a week before you return on Mid-South TV, Skandar Akbar announces that you'll be coming back and that you should still be the North American champion. Akbar, one of the most popular heels in the territory. And actually, there's a really funny story. I'm not sure if you've ever heard this, but you know the actor Matthew McConaughey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was a big fan of Mid-South Wrestling and Houston Wrestling. And
I didn't know that.
yeah, actually, Jim Duggan is his favorite wrestler of all time. So is it
Matthew McConaughey?
Matthew McConaughey. They were actually on an episode of WWE's The Bump, which is kind of like a show that WWE does online. And they had Matthew McConaughey on as a guest, and they had Jim Duggan do a run-in on the show. And Matthew McConaughey was so excited to see Jim Duggan. It was really funny. But apparently Skandar had so much heat with Matthew McConaughey that he spit on him and got kicked out of the arena one time. So just a really kind of a funny footnote about
McConaughey got kicked out of the arena
for spitting on Skandar Akbar.
Wow.
Yep. Isn't
Why? You know, here I am. You know, I'm the guy. I'm the wrestler, and you know all this stuff. I have no idea. You know what? Why did this not come across my plate before?
Right. So there's a very
well, you know what? I'm a big fan of Matthew McConaughey.
I'm sure he knows you and your work very well. You know, after being a Mid-South fan,
there was some way to get in touch with him.
I'm sure we can find. We'll have to see if we can get him on the show. Wouldn't that be cool?
Oh, that would be great.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to his agent or whatever, publicist, somebody.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was really funny. It really points to the kind of heat that Skandar was getting with the fans at the time.
Oh, yeah.
What can you tell us about Skandar and the sort of heat that a character like that gets in the Mid-South region of the United States?
Well, I mean, you know, here's the other thing you need to know. You know, Skandar Akbar. Okay, you know, his real name is Jim Weba, and this is legit. This guy was one of the strongest guys I have ever seen in my life. You should have seen him in the gym. Oh my God! I mean, you know, if Skandar Akbar, you know, if anybody jumped him, they were jumping on the wrong frog, buddy, because he could go. You know, I mean, you know, you couldn't tell that from just looking at him. Of course, he wore that big, you know, it almost looked like a big dress thing, you know.
Yeah, the headdress.
But that guy was, you know, that was one of those guys where if wrestling were real, who would you not want to mess with? Jim Weba.
Of all people, the manager is the guy.
Yeah. And he couldn't be a nicer guy in real life. Oh my gosh, yeah. Thank God.
And, were you like buddies with him outside of the ring, or just?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. We were definitely friends for sure. I think he managed me at some point
during this period. Yeah, during this period, right when you made your return here.
Yep.
Pretty cool, and he's a guy that doesn't really get brought up. Like a lot of people talk about the greatest managers of all time, and his name doesn't really get brought up enough. I don't know, man. This guy, he really, in my opinion, he had a really kind of indelible legacy there in Mid-South.
Yeah. I mean, he was good. I don't think he traveled, you know, anywhere else with that though. I'm not sure.
Makes you wonder if, like, because I feel like Vince would see a character like this and a guy who could talk the way that he could talk and be like, boy, I got to get this guy on my TV. It makes you wonder what happened there, like why it never worked out.
Who knows?
Well, the next week you'd make your big return, and it's a hell of a way to bring you back. Dr. Death and Hacksaw are set to have a football helmet match. Yes, Ted, a football helmet match, which I assume is just two guys wrestling while wearing football helmets. I don't know that for sure, but let's have a look at how this whole thing turned out.
Okay. You talk about how tough and rough you are. Come on, right here in the middle. Right here in the middle of the square circle. I'm gonna turn that pony into a jackass. I'm gonna turn everybody around. Where's Jim? Where is he?
Well, Hacksaw Jim Duggan has never
Come on!
been late, ladies and gentlemen. He should be here in just a few moments.
He's a coward! He's a coward! He's afraid of me! He's afraid! He's a jealous! He's been jealous all along! He's been afraid!
Just a second.
There's not going to be any football helmet match tonight. I saved you the trouble, Dr. Death. As you can see, this is an SMU football helmet, and Jim Duggan is nowhere around. Now, all you people know that Ted DiBiase's scheduled return is right here tonight, and tonight it's going to be. I'm here to face Johnny Mantel, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now, my return, Mr. Ross, was almost over before it got started, because the man who all you people love, the man is supposed to be the great barroom brawler, the great back alley fighter, Jim Duggan, jumped me from behind, tried to jump me from behind, tried to hit me in the head with this football helmet and end my return before it got started. Now, being the athlete that I am, I ducked out of the way of this football helmet, Ross, and I put one fist right on that glass jaw of that no-good, drunken hippie, and I left him right where he belongs, out there in the gutter. That's right. Duggan's out there in the gutter, and I'm going to tell you, Mid-South, I am back to regain the North American heavyweight title and take right back up where I left off.
All right, so if I can follow the story here, you're saying that Hacksaw Jim Duggan tried to jump you outside the building.
That's right.
And you avoided his attack, and you knocked him out. You had a fight with Duggan and knocked him out with one punch.
That's right.
You had a fight.
Exactly right.
And you had a fight with Jim Duggan, and you're not wrinkled, your clothes aren't dirty or anything. You had a fight outside with Jim Duggan, you stayed clean?
Look, Ross, I'm a former North American heavyweight champion. I'm the man. Everybody knows that Jim Duggan, he got where he got because of me. He's overrated. He's nothing but a drunken bum, and that's right. I knocked him out right on that glass jaw with one punch.
All right, so where is he now then?
He's right where I told you he is. He's out there in the gutter. And if you don't believe me, take somebody out there to find him, because that's right where I left him.
Well, ladies and gentlemen,
I'm back, Mid-South, and I'm back to stay. Here's a souvenir, Dr. Death.
All right, man. Back. You're making a big statement there coming back. Ted, 40 years later, what do you think?
Oh, gosh, man. Where'd that guy go? Woo, what a good-looking young man.
He did look like $1 million, as it were.
Oh, gosh. That was funny.
Man, that was good stuff. And like just kind of the verbiage you're using right out of the gate. You're calling him a drunken bum. You're saying you left him laying in the gutter. You're telling everybody that you knocked him out with one punch. Like it's just really good stuff and a great way to kind of get heat straight out of the gate with the audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
back.
I loved it. I loved it. It was a great promo. And, I am wondering, though, Ted, you've got Dr. Death out there. He's wearing a football helmet. You're coming out holding Jim's SMU helmet. You're a traditional wrestler, obviously. What did you think of the idea of guys putting on football gear to have a wrestling match?
I just think, I don't know if they really were going to do that. I think it was just part of the gimmick.
Okay.
And I just, I know one thing is like all the fans, and of course, we're talking about Mid-South is based in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
That's headquarters. And so, for Doc to come out there in his OU helmet, that was just, I think it was good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, you just made a point there that I never even thought about is that Tulsa, Oklahoma, obviously the Sooners are not all that far from Tulsa. And you've got Jim Duggan, who's the babyface, who's representing a team from Dallas. I would think that a lot of the fans would be kind of torn here. Like, I know Doc is a heel, but
and that's just it. I mean, and Doc played for OU.
Yeah.
He was a starter for him. I mean, he was bad. He was tough, man.
He's a badass.
He was.
Well, Ted, you might be wondering what became of Jim Duggan that night, but his night was not over just yet. Our next clip took place later in the same evening and explains what really happened out there in the parking lot of the Irish McNeil's Boys Club. Let's have a look.
Gentlemen, we generally don't want to make an interview like this, but Duggan, they're trying to get him to go to the hospital, but he's insisted he has something he wants to say, and then they're going to take him straight to the hospital. You look like you've been hit by a Mack truck.
I don't know. I bent over, get my bag out of the trunk. I don't know who it was, 3 or 4 guys grab a hold of me. I'm doing okay. I'm holding my own. Then boom, I get it from behind, a slapjack or something. The only guy, they hold on to me. I look up, and the son of a... only face I can make out of the group is Ted DiBiase. They held me, and DiBiase took it to me with a slapjack. But I made it here. He said I couldn't make it here. He left me laying in the mud. But I told you people, I told you I'd come back. I'd come here and I'd stand up for Dr. Death. I'd stand up for what he did to them other people. But DiBiase did his best to stop me. But it didn't work. I'm here, and I'll go on.
I think that's enough. Let's go back to Boyd.
Pretty good acting there from old Hacksaw, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
Man, you rotten bastard, Ted.
Yeah.
Man, just right out of the gate, it's really good positioning for you here in Mid-South. Again, he's the new JYD for all intents and purposes, the new top baby face, and right out of the gate, you get to come after Jim, which is fantastic. Now that JYD is gone, and Jim is in this position, you had worked with him before. Obviously, he was part of the Rat Pack, and you're kind of helping him come along as a young wrestler during that period. What do you think about Jim in this new position as kind of the top guy in the company?
Yeah, I was happy for him, and again, and you just said it, when he first started, I was there, and he tagged and was in tag matches with me, and then we'd worked some matches, I think, together. And I liked Jim from the get go. It was like, and again, it's kind of like, there's guys that profess to be tough, and then there's guys that are really tough. And I tell you what, if you took Jim Duggan and again, and Steve Williams. Steve Williams was another guy who was, a really nice guy, but if you could only have 2 guys with you, and you were going to take on a whole bar full of badasses, those would be the 2 guys you'd want on your side.
You throw Akbar in there, you could really do some damage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Jim, a legit collegiate wrestler, nothing to piss around with. Obviously, we all know that Doc was a badass in his own right. But yeah, it's cool to see Jim in that role. The thing that really sticks out for me when it comes to Jim is that guys like you and Jake and so many others that were top guys in the industry were also second-generation wrestlers. And on the other side of that, you've got Jim Duggan, who didn't know about wrestling or care about wrestling until he was maybe 21, 22, something like that. Yeah. And he's getting it. So he's coming into the game late, but now, it's whatever. Yeah. It's something like 5 years after he first started in wrestling. He's one of the top guys in the Mid-South territory. Like, boy, it really speaks to Jim and how he understands the wrestling business, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And again, and a lot of it has to do with who you're exposed to. I mean, like I said, Marcus, I grew up in wrestling. I mean, like from my youngest memories, my dad was Mike DiBiase. I mean, not only a very well-known and respected professional wrestler, but you talk about a badass. He's a national amateur champion too for Nebraska.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was for Nebraska, or I think he won it in 1946 AAU heavyweight wrestling champion. I think he was in the Navy, and I think when he got out of the Navy is when he went to Nebraska. But anyway, you know, here's another legitimate badass. And I kind of looked at Jim like, here's a guy who's a real deal too. So,
And Jim, by the way, credits you for helping him develop. Anytime you ask somebody like Jim, or anytime you ask Jim about his history in wrestling and like some of like the critical moments, learning moments,
yeah,
your name always comes up. So
yeah,
he always puts you over as the guy who really helped smarten him up to the business.
yeah. And he's and a good guy, and again, if, it's kind of like there are guys who are coachable and there's guys who aren't coachable, and there's a few of those we could talk about. We may have already talked about a few of them, but
So we've certainly mentioned a few of those names.
but no, but Jim, hey, nobody better, man. He's a great guy.
Top notch, and in my opinion, one of the greatest baby faces I think in wrestling history. You take a look back at his body of work, the way that he would get the crowd pumped up and excited about his match, or getting them against the heel. Like, man, Jim was borderline unparalleled for many years.
Yeah, he was a good guy, great guy.
Well, Akbar is going to acquire the services of Hercules Hernandez at this time, and you're going to start teaming up with Herc. So you've got Akbar as your manager, you've got Herc as your new tag team partner, and the two of you are going to enter an issue with the Rock and Roll Express. Now, Ted, Ricky, and Robert, they're considered one of the greatest tag teams of all time. Pretty fun to see you having your chance to work with them. What can you tell us about your experiences working with Ricky and Robert?
Those guys, they were a great tag team. They were a great tag team. I'll tell you what, I love those guys because they were so good. They were so good. They were, just generally speaking, good guys too. I never had any problems with them. I looked forward to wrestling with them because they were good in the ring. They were good in the ring, and there was no negative, nothing negative, just all positive.
Well, yourself and Hercules are actually going to defeat the Rock and Roll Express on December 3rd, 1984 in New Orleans and become the new Mid-South Tag Team Champions. So Watts has definitely got you guys positioned really well right out of the gate. Teaming up with Hercules, I mean, he's a big guy, great body, great look.
Yeah.
I know he's not exactly considered a super polished worker. What's it like teaming up with a guy like Herc?
He's not bad at all. And I guess the positive is he was a good guy. It's had good guy, obviously had the look, and I would say a fair worker, but he's not one of the best. He's not like I don't know. I don't know what he. I think he's probably recognized more for just how he looked than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, an irreplaceable look on that guy. You can see why Vince took an immediate interest in him.
Yeah, and he was. Yeah, I mean, I won't say he wasn't a bad worker at all. He was a very good worker. But I wouldn't put him like, oh God, yeah, he's one of the best ever type of deal.
I always thought he had a really interesting voice too. Like, I thought he was a pretty good promo, good look. So he had a lot going for him as a wrestler, that's for sure.
Yeah, he did.
Well, the title run doesn't last very long for you and Hercules. Christmas Day, 1984, you guys are going to drop the belts back to the Rock and Rolls at the Lakefront Arena in New Orleans. Ted, working on Christmas Day, pretty rough.
Yeah, I hated it, but I did it. Here's what the promoters found out. If you run a show on Christmas night, you're going to pack the house. You know why? Because all these families have gotten up that day. They've opened their presents. They've had their Christmas dinner. Now they want to go do something.
Oh, man.
I mean, we would pack the house. So I can't tell you then how many times I had to, here in Jackson, we would, Melanie and I would go to her, her mom and dad, where they were living at the time. And we would have Christmas, we would open presents with them and have our Christmas dinner. And at about 3:00 that afternoon, I would get in my car and head for New Orleans, because we would wrestle in New Orleans on Christmas night. and pack the house. And then I'll tell you what else I do. When that show was over, I had you ever see Smokey and the Bandit?
Yeah.
I had a Trans Am that looked just like the one, what was his name?
Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds drove in Smokey and the Bandit. It looked just like it. And that sucker would haul. And I would wrestle and I would leave New Orleans, and brother, I can't tell, like it's I want to say it's 160 miles, back to Jackson from New Orleans. Brother, on Christmas night, there wasn't anything on that highway but me. I would put my car in I'm talking about the divider, the white lines.
Yeah.
I would get right in the middle of the white lines and I would just go. I can't remember now, but I know there's times that, it's kind of like, dang, it's like if you had bought a ticket, got on an airplane and flown there and got off, it's kind of like, maybe not as fast as an airplane, but with all the other stuff that you got to do to catch a plane, I was there, buddy.
Well, you're probably covering 160 miles in, an hour and a half or something.
Yeah.
Maybe less.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, that's you're making good time there. I'm sure the wife was happy to have you home Christmas night too.
Absolutely.
I've got to believe that when you're working on Christmas Day, Watts knows he's pulling you guys away from your families, big crowds. I have to assume you guys are getting
well again, the positive for all of us is we knew, it's like, it wasn't never known until somebody tested it, but we knew that the arena was going to be sold out.
Yeah.
And so if there was a reason to do it, there it was.
Safe to assume that you're driving back with a whole bunch of money in your pocket after filling an arena.
Well, you didn't get paid, like that night, but
okay.
You knew, you knew the check was coming.
It's got to ease the blow whenever you're working on Christmas if you've got a big payoff headed your way.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, Ted, we're almost done here. This is our final clip this week. On the final Mid-South TV taping of the year, you'll cross paths with a jobber who would go on to make a pretty nice little name for himself in the business. Let's go ahead and have a look at this one.
259 pounds, Ted DiBiase. His opponent from San Antonio, Texas, at 220 pounds, Shawn Michaels.
Shawn Michaels being introduced. Earlier, his opponent was named Ted DiBiase from Omaha, Nebraska. A tremendous, rugged grappler, as you've seen him many times here on Mid-South Wrestling. Ted DiBiase, who holds back nothing in any match. Jim?
He certainly doesn't, Boyd. Of course, he's one of the great tacticians in all of wrestling. As fine a technical wrestler as you will ever see. He always has a game plan. He always has strategy mapped out, and when you put his mind and General Skandar Akbar's mind together, the devious and underhanded things that they come up with sometimes are just beyond comprehension. The young Shawn Michaels has really found a soft spot in the heart of the fans of Mid-South Wrestling. But he'll need more than just their support. He'll need to utilize that great athletic ability to stay in there with Ted DiBiase, one of the finest in the profession. You saw DiBiase, Michaels went for that high hip toss. DiBiase blocked it. Now DiBiase trying to take over on young Shawn Michaels with that body slam. Elbow smash right to the solar plexus. Now DiBiase with a rear chin lock. Great camera shot by our production crew from KTBS Channel 3. As Ted DiBiase has really got the rear chin lock secured on young Shawn Michaels.
Well, he's the leader of the Rat Pack, the Big Chief, Ted DiBiase.
Great maneuver by Shawn Michaels. He was thinking there, and DiBiase, you can see the look of disgust on his face as he came up. Michaels inside drop cradle. And DiBiase is boiling. DiBiase is boiling. We got another penny predicament. 1, Shawn Michaels, I'm impressed. But DiBiase coming right back. As I mentioned, he always has a game plan. If it does go astray, he has the tremendous ability to improvise. DiBiase with the elbow, catching Shawn Michaels coming off the ropes. Using the second rope, DiBiase comes down once again on this young man from San Antonio, Texas. DiBiase kicked him right in the face. Those nice facial features of young Shawn Michaels may be rearranged, boy, before this one's over. Great clothesline. DiBiase tried to tear his head off. DiBiase, the self-proclaimed king of the Rat Pack, General Skandar Akbar's close associate. Power slam. DiBiase with a power slam. It looks like he's setting now for the figure four. DiBiase going into the figure four. He's got it locked, Shawn Michaels.
And once he locks it in, that's it. For the opponents of Ted DiBiase, this time it's Shawn Michaels. And we'll be back with...
All right, Ted, a young Shawn Michaels. What'd you think?
Shawn Michaels. I'm glad I got to watch that. Yeah, I remember meeting Shawn. He was back then. You couldn't get two words out of him. Very kind of withdrawn and shy. Boy, did things change? Oh gosh, when him and Marty got together. Oh my gosh, Marty Jannetty.
Yeah,
they were. But hey, Shawn grew him to be in one of the best ever, no doubt.
Man.
No doubt at all.
Sure did. And you were generous there as the veteran. I mean, that's an enhancement match, and you gave him some nice hope spots there, made him look good, and got the crowd behind him. Pretty cool moment there with Shawn.
Yeah, it was good. Good.
Did you see the kind of, I mean, this guy's going to go on to be Mr. WrestleMania, the showstopper. He's going to go by all these names. I mean, early on, are you looking at this kid like, maybe, this kid stands a chance?
Well, yeah. I mean, right there. I mean, I knew he was young and green, and he did everything I told him to do. And he did everything right, and selling and the whole deal. I mean, obviously, he knew he was there to do a job. I mean, he was a young guy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was, no complaints. Still no complaints.
Now, last question. I'll let you go on this. I noticed, Ted, that you beat him with the figure four. And just for reference, for our listening audience, you were also wearing the glove. So the loaded glove is kind of your finish at this point. You load the glove, knock the guy out. But here you're beating him with the figure four. What can you tell us about finishing a guy with your finisher instead of finishing a guy with your gimmick? Why do it that way?
Again, here's the deal. I mean, I'm the heel. I'm the top heel. And I'm in the ring. I'm not in the ring with I'm not in the ring with Jim Duggan. I'm not in the ring with I'm not in the ring with somebody who I think I'm going to necessarily need to load the glove. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, I mean, and obviously that would always be an option, but when you're in the ring with a guy who is obviously fresh meat, I shouldn't have to load the glove to beat him.
Gotcha. So
yeah.
he's outmatched, and so it makes no logical sense for you to load the glove.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Man, Ted, this was fun, and what a great episode looking back to 1984, 40 years later, and your return to Mid-South Wrestling. Does it feel like 40 years?
Yeah. Man. I mean, oh my gosh, so that was it's 40 years ago, so that means I was
30.
31.
Yeah, about to turn 31 in January.
Yeah.
Man.
I will be 71 here in a matter of a month.
Well, Ted, you look good. So whatever you're doing, stay the course, pal. And look, I'll look forward to chatting with you here again next week. We'll be doing Ask Ted Anything. But folks, I know a lot of people online have asked about Mid-South Wrestling and wanted to hear more of it. We're gonna keep going. So probably next month we'll pick it up again. And Ted, I'll look forward to chatting with you again next week.
Awesome, buddy. And you have a great Thanksgiving, buddy.
Hey, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family as well. You guys already celebrated it once, but I hope the second celebration is just as fun.
Yeah, it's probably going to be.
Well, hey, look, I'm thankful for you, Ted. Thankful for you joining us here on the podcast every week and getting to know you, become your pal.
Hey, man, you're the best, buddy. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And we will. I can't let anybody go without always reminding you that everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
We'll catch you guys next time right here on Everybody's Got a Pod.
$1 million dreams, tell them all good night. Everybody's got a pod, everybody's got a